Hey everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here with a layout using some cut files from my cut file store called JustNick. We had a really good weekend a couple weeks ago for National Scrapbooking Day and had some free cut files and a sale on the store. If you missed out, we'll have another one soon, but I ended up creating this page with the intention that I will use it on National Scrapbooking Day, and then I'll be honest, I posted the wrong one. So I guess it gave me some more time to get this video edited and everything, so that was kind of good, but yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but oh well. So I'm going to apologize in advance because I realized now that I hit my camera like probably a gazillion times throughout the course of the first part of this video. So I apologize now for the rumbling and shaking you're about to witness for the next few minutes, but I promise it will all be good in the end. But I'm using this basic blocks background, I think that's what it's called, from the store, and I've kind of, you can see I've cut it on my mat, and what I do actually most of the time is I kind of design my page in the Silhouette. I have a Silhouette, and that's what I cut from, the Silhouette software, and so I kind of can tell where I want to crop things off, and I've just cropped around where I know this is going to be on my page. I kind of tilted it so it was on a bit of an angle. As you can see, normally it's like one big square 12 by 12 piece. Obviously, that's not what we have that you're looking at. But I'm just using some pieces of paper that I have, mostly scraps from my stash here. This is from a leftover class that I taught for Crop and Create for Scrapbook Cards Today magazine. So this is some really great Amy Tangerine paper. I really love this collection in particular. There's lots of really fun, bright patterns, and I love the mix of colors. You can kind of do girly and boy with this kind of collection, so I really like that because I have both girls and boys, so that works out quite nice, right? And as you can see, there's no real magic to what I'm doing. I'm just cutting strips of paper if they're already not cut, and I'm just filling in that open spaces in the cut file with my paper. And as you can see, like I said earlier, I hit the camera a gazillion times. And yeah, just filling it in as much as I can. I'm going to leave a few empty gaps so that the cardstock shows behind the background, but for the most part, I'll have probably about 90% of this, 95% of this filled in with different patterns of paper. And I'm just trying to switch up my pattern and my color so I don't kind of have a big blob of pink or yellow or something in one area. And I do like the neutrals in this collection, so I made sure to add a couple strips of that. I have like that black and white mandala type paper, as well as the black and white stripe and a polka dot. That's in, I think it's called the 11 a.m. sheet. Has like half of the sheet is like a black and white stripe, and half is that black and white dot that I just used there. So I'm making sure to add some of that neutral color in there so it's not all so, wow, this is nice and bright, although that is perfectly fine as well. But if you have a lot of scraps, this is a great way to fill it in quite quickly. This one actually moved quite quickly because everything's kind of square and not, you know, super intricate, you know, corners and stuff like that. And so I'm just going to kind of fill this part in. And I'm almost done with that. I think for the most part, it's good with how that turned off. And I'm going to apologize right now for the big shadow that has appeared, and that's because my daughter has come downstairs and turned on the light in her area, which causes a shadow in my area. So sorry about that, but that's my big dark shadow you see. That's just unfortunate, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm just lining up my cut file here on the page, and I realize there's a couple gaps where I probably should have filled stuff in, so I'm just going to add some adhesive and stick that down. And yes, for a change, if you see me do this before, I actually did not pop dot this whole thing. Yes, I do that a lot, and in this case I didn't, so I saved the world from a million pop dots that can be used by someone else because I use a lot. So I've cut the word happy out. This is from the Word for cut file set, and what I'm doing is I am doing something that I'm going to take apart later. That's my spoiler alert. And I'm just tracing it around the inside of the letters, and I'm going to get my watercolor paint out. And I have this brilliant idea that I'm going to kind of color in that word happy with watercolors, but you know, kind of messy, not super clean, because I'm really trying to get better at using my watercolor paints and stuff like that. I really love how they look when other people do them, and I'm super inspired to do it. And then once I sit down to do it, it looks like a gobbledygook mess. And I'm quite sure it's because I'm using too much water. So as you can see what I'm doing here, I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me. Nicole, you use way too much water. So I'm just kind of erasing the pencil lines from the holes, and I'm just coloring in with my watercolors. I really like these Prima watercolors. I picked them up from my stamping studio here in Canada. It's on the eastern side of Canada when I was out that way for a crop. And I really like them. They're really pigmented and they're really good. I don't use them a lot. I should use them more, but I really like the pastel one, to be honest. The pastel color one, I think, is the one I have right there on the screen. That's the one I use the most, and it's not super pastel-y, as you can see. There's quite a few brighter colors also, but it's a really good palette if you want to get into watercoloring and such. I do recommend it, even though I'm not a huge watercolor person. So I'm watercoloring the letters, and they're looking okay. It's looking all right. You know, I'm not an expert, as you can tell. It's not my major thing, but I'm trying, and I guess that's kind of like how it goes, right? You're supposed to try stuff that's outside your comfort zone and just kind of go with it, but again, it gets all warpy, and I know that's from adding too much water, and that bothers me. I don't know, does it bother you? I'm sure it bothers people who aren't a super big mixed media person. But it looks super pretty when people do it. I'm always like, oh, that looks so great. They did such a wonderful job. How do they make it look so good? And then I do it, and it's kind of like this hot mess, you know. So that is me, but that's okay. So there's my happy, kind of all colored in, messy-ish, but not super messy, but enough that it's watercolory. And it looks good with the black cardstock. I do kind of like how that looks. So I need to let that dry a bit. You can see me trying to blow it dry because that's really going to work. And then I have these photos of myself I took. You know, everybody likes selfies. So I took some photos, and I thought I would use these on my page. And then I'm kind of looking at it as I'm doing this, and I'm like, yeah, this looks good. But I forgot to erase the pencil for one of the inside letters, and it was really bothering me, but I just went with it. So I added some of the adhesive to the back of this. A lot of the time I do use silhouette adhesive back cardstock for this kind of thing, and I know I should wait because the watercolor is not dry yet, but this is part of my problem. This is why I'm not really good. Well, this is probably not the only reason why, but this is one of the reasons why I'm not really good at mixed media. It's because I am not patient. So I cannot like watercolor or paint or do something and wait. So you can see there that I have stitched down my cut file a little bit, and I've added my happy because I didn't want to show you all my crazy sewing, and just stuck that down. And now I'm doing a whole lot of fussy cutting flowers. I really particularly am obsessed with this paper from Mimi Tangerine. I use it in one of my classes, and I'm kind of obsessed with cutting it out. The ladies there, I'm sure, are hating me now because I made them hand cut a whole bunch of flowers for a couple layouts, but they look really good in the end. I really like this kind of simple flower, and you can cut it out so easily. Yeah, this is sped up for YouTube purposes, but in reality, this didn't take a whole lot of time to fussy cut out. And yeah, here's where I destroy the top part of my layout. As I fussy cut the flowers, I realized it was too messy for me, and I didn't like it, so I cut the top off, and I have placed just plain white cardstock in behind it again, and I'm going to leave my title happy there. And I'm going to tell you, it's not as happy now as it was when it was with the color. I kind of really like the color. I think I should have done something still in behind the happy because it looks plain right now, right? Looking at it right now, it looks pretty plain. But in the end, I think what would have been better is maybe like that smoosh technique where you take like the mist or the watercolor and you smoosh it in behind. I think that would have looked better than plain black and white like that. So probably not my wisest decision, but once you kind of rip it off, you kind of don't have a choice. You've committed to ripping that off and going from there. So that's pretty much where I ended up. And so I decided, because I took the color away there, I'm going to add a lot of these fussy cut flowers. And so I ended up doing that around most of the title. You'll be able to see. I'm not going to bore you with all my fussy cutting, but I'm just tucking little bits here and there. I start with this kind of one corner, And then it kind of goes from there. I really love these leaves too. I fussy cut those out as well. And I like to leave, when I do fussy cutting, I like to leave probably like a good 1/8 of an inch around the outside of the leaf shape. And that's just to add kind of like I talk about in my class, that to add like a die cut type of look to it. When you buy die cuts, they never are cut right close to the edge of the actual image, right? There's always like a little tiny white border around. So I think of it the same kind of way. You want to leave like a little white border or border, whatever color pattern paper it happens to be, around the edge of that fussy cut shape. That kind of just makes it look like it was meant to be that. So I cut out some of the flower cutting here, and you can see I'm just going to layer a whole bunch of these in around my photo and around my title. So I think that had I left that watercolor paint at this point, it would have been kind of busy, right? Like I'm putting these busy flowers on, and yeah, my title is kind of boring with just a plain black on top of the white cardstock. But I do think that had I left that color and then added all these flowers, that it would have been just like way too much. So you let me know if you agree or disagree with me. I'm totally fine if you disagree. I'd like to hear what you think, though, because, you know, when you're making a layout, you kind of get stuck in the moment of what you're doing, and you don't really consider, or at least sometimes I don't consider, what everybody else thinks. I try to avoid worrying about that. Super hard for me because, I mean, that's just how I am. I always worry about what other people think, which is really stupid at the age of 43 that I should even worry about that. But anyhow, that's life, right? So let me know. I am curious to see what you think. But yeah, I'm just adding some bits. I love these clear stickers too that are by Amy Tangerine for the same collection. So I'm trying to add a few of those in and around my title. I really wanted to like add something into my title. I thought that would be cool, into the open space. But I just couldn't make it work. I really love these stickers though. They're really cool that they're clear. And when you put them on the white cardstock, they look super cool. They almost look like a bit of a rub-on. I really like them. I really wanted to use a whole bunch, but I just couldn't make that happen. So I used a couple. That makes me happy that there's a couple less in my sticker book than when I started. That's always a good thing, right? And so just adding a few little bits. And I guess underneath my photos would have been a good area to add some journaling, but I'm terrible at adding journaling. I have a little typewriter that's supposed to motivate me to add more journaling, but it doesn't, because then I have to take out the typewriter. It's an older typewriter too, so it's not super, great to type with. But I end up adding like some strips of paper and then ripping those off because they were just too dark, just too much. So I end up leaving it as it is, and I think that's pretty much how it's going to be. I added a little bit of sequins too in and around my flowers, you can see, and some fussy cut tiny ones, but I really love that bottom busy background. It's really simple, and the whole thing came together relatively quickly, I think, aside from my snafu with the watercolors. So that's it. Thanks for stopping by.